The Honorable Lady Suzanna Jewell from Nauru Kabir Room in the Kingdom of the Outlands. And today what I'm going to be covering is carding the butterfly way. And I will not be very technical in terms because I'm assuming there are more beginners taking this class, and I want you to be able to get all the terms and understand everything right away. So I have to back up. Is this reading correctly? When you decide to do, thanks for the head, a project, and I'm going to talk about carders, and they're way down here, that if you don't have all this information, that will help you understand whether you're carding or whether you're combing. And this is just a very brief, pick your project, pick your sheet that matches your project. Then you're either going to have new, meaning cleaned, or raw. Then if you have new, you're either going to do a bat, cloud, roving. Raw, you would be teasing for a short intro, but you can take the raw and put it over here, and I will demonstrate that. And then when you're done, you got to decide whether you're going to do woolen and worsted, because that affects your carding. Think of woolen as little fluffy sheep in the sky. And then think of worsted of a man's suit, very fine and very stiff. If you were going to do a scarf or say a hat, you would most likely do woolen. Long draw is woolen. You can also do long draw off roving if you're really talented, but usually I'll show you when we get to that point. This is just overall worsted, combing, but you can do it the butterfly method. By doing the butterfly method, you're going to cancel out a lot of these different things. And I'm going to talk about the carders right now. These are Howards. They are not flat. Because if they were flat, the distance from here, the width here, and the width up here would be the same. These are what I call semi-curved. This is curved. You can see that the wood is actually bowed. When you see a set this small, this is usually referenced Carter's student set. Carter's standard. So if you were to go online and purchase Carter's and you see a really good price and you think you're going to get this, you're getting this. So you have to be aware of student or standard. I did carding on these Clemens and Clemens for approximately, I think, 28 years. And when I took an old college master's program, level 1, they talked about carding, and that's where I was introduced to the butterfly method, and I was hooked. Hook, line, and sinker. And the reason why I call it the butterfly, excuse me, I need water because it's so dry here. I saw it on a video because I did research for a year trying to find a name for it, and butterfly came up, so that just stuck with me. For the most part, everybody does pet the kitty, and they load their carders, and then you scrape it off on that and do it. Well, you're tangling, and you're going to see that process a little bit later on. This is semi-curved. You will notice when I use these carders, my hands are very loose, because what a problem that was happening is a lot of people quit carding because they were saying how brutal it was on their hands. Butterfly is not brutal at all. When you load your carder, you will leave 1 inch all the way around empty. You're only going to load in the center here, because every time you card, the fibers will spread out. So if you did a Rolex and you're spinning and it's fine, and then it's really hard, and then the tail end of your Rolex is easy again, that's because when it's carded, it spreads out and you'll have a thin zone right here, and that will affect things. So now I'm going to load them. And I'm going to just use roving. How does this differ from other things? We could have a whole class, roving, bats, sliver. That's a whole nother thing, So what I like to do when I teach, or if you have problems with wool or blending, you've blended something up and it's just too slippery, I always do what is called the 1090. You have 100% wool, 100% alpaca, and you want to learn how to do alpaca by itself. Well, the percentage would be 95% wool, 10 alpaca. Then you go down 50-50, and then you keep on getting less until you're almost 100% alpaca. But when you blend it with a little bit of wool, ghost-like, you're not even gonna tell it's in there. That helps bind it all together and not slip on you. When loading carders, I find the end, and all I do is I hit it a few times on my leg, and I want to see the very tip. And there's the tip up here. Should have black on. Here's the tip of this roving. That's what I want to use when I load. I put the tip, which is right here, and tap. As I do this, all of a sudden these are going to level off, so I don't have a point. And I'm loading. One of the problem areas is that when people load, they go above the nails, and I'm going to just bump for nails. That will cause nibs. And now I'm going to put it on my leg. And I just lay that on my leg, and I just very gently. I am not embedding the fibers in the carders. Now, if I take my time, whether I'm using roving, then the little bits that have been dyed, or raw, if you take the time, place it so the tips aren't crossed, and you pull it out, all your fiber is parallel. It's when you spin and you get nubs, you can get nubs that are parts of the hair are not the same on the sheet, and you can have a lock, looks perfect, no second cuts, load it, and then when you go to spin, you'll find a little nubs. What has happened is some of the hair in the lock kinks up and some stays straight. And it'll kink up, and that'll give you your nubs. Because I went crazy one day. I had a lock and I kept on getting nubs, and I did more experiments, and I just found out that part of the lock will kink up on itself. So that's another session. So now we have them all off. We leave this empty because we're going to go out with it. Now, when I tap, I am only using the top 1.5 inches. And I found this might sound really loud to you when I touch, but I'm not hurting my cards. And it's a way for you to hear when the nails actually touch. Now, when I had fiber this long, I lay it on my leg, And I just start going up. Now, this is what I was a blonde, so this is the blonde thing. Flip it back so I don't have any hairs to the front like that. Flip it back, connect, lift, hold diagonally. We don't want to embed and we don't want to lift off. And that's one of the hardest parts. And as I go up, clean, ready to come off, because I've taken the time, the prep time, in laying the fibers into the carders. Now, my favorite thing to roll off, I do not roll it off from card to card. That I've never been that skilled. But now we're going to make the hair like a troll bow. We're going to do sushi, not burrito. As soon as you do the burrito, in a burrito, you bend the ends in and you start to roll. We don't want the hairs to cross. We want to maintain the parallel fiber being parallel to one another. These are my favorite sticks. You can get 2 wooden dowels and sand them to so smooth that they won't catch the fiber. But I was really fortunate. A friend picked up a sack of these from a thrift store, and they work perfect because they're square. They'll lock into one another, so they won't roll. So I'm picking it up, and I find the tips right about there. Now, when I roll, I want to keep my sticks together. I don't want them to twist, and I want them turn, turn. I don't want to do this. You do it together, and you don't want to do it real tight. When rolling off a carder, this is going to be woolen, and if you roll it another way, it's worsted. So I gently pick it up a little bit, pull it. And say I want this not so tight and I want it loose, I just pick it up a little bit and then I ease it up, let it relax, roll it, roll it. Now, I like to put the sticks underneath the very bottom part here. So when I roll it, it's curling the short ends back into the roll egg. The term roll egg, I've been told, they think it comes from food and some kind of Scandinavian thing. Because I asked about it, she said, I think it's a food and it's a Scandinavian thing. If this is rolled really tight, then it becomes a poonie, and we roll tightness for cotton because the shorter the threads. And all I do is slide out one end and off. And I have a perfect roll egg. What you can do with roll eggs, I always have my students use roll eggs, because once you've mastered these, then you can go on and do other things. What can you do with a roll egg? Lots of things. If you don't have a spinning wheel, you can prep, and you won't be able to see this. It's like a tornado. So I just do a very slight twist. And what it is, it's a circle like a tornado, and I'm pre-drafting. Pre-drafting is another term for spinning. And you can actually see the fibers going around themselves. And what you can do with this, if you're not a very good spinner and you're having difficulties, I would make roll eggs. I would pre-draft until you get the hang of it. And then you'll come to a point where you won't even have to pre-draft.
And if I may ask,
Yes.
Is this for making yarn? I'm sort of ignorant, so,
Oh, yes, yes, this is, yeah, we'll call it yarn.
okay.
The reason why pencil roving is important now is because I've gotten into knob binding. So now I have all this ready to go. Very easy to do on a spindle, very easy to do on a wheel because it's all ready for you. And if you're weaving, you can insert this in your weaving. And when it's packed down, it looks like yarn that's been plied. So then you just very gently roll it. And this is called a bird's nest when they do carding. And it just sits there and it's ready to go. Now, you're looking at my carders and they are clean. They are not nasty. You don't have to get a carding brush and clean your carders. But if you don't want the expense and you have dirty carders, someone asked me what to do. My nails are pointing downward. And I start with the first inch and I just do this and I work my way down. And then I do it here and just roll it off and I have clean carders. Now, how is it different? I'm going to load again. And a lot of times, if you're using roving and it's pretty good and it hasn't been felted, sometimes when people dye the roving for you, it gets a little felty. So it's a little harder. I had one that was really felted. So I did this method and made Rolex and came out beautiful. Butterfly, tails down. Tap, tilt, lift, pull, diagonally. Do the blonde, flip, tap, lift, pull. Now, if I was doing Pet the Kitty, I would be getting little nubs here. That's ready to go and roll off. Wonder if I want to blend it again. Okay, I would just put that on that leg, put this on this hand. Ready to go. And you can see I did it twice, how the fibers are fanning out to the sides. I'm not using my whole carder. Again, these are 90s. And we use different nails, tines or nails per inch. And these are 90 to an inch. Okay, then I'm going to roll it off. Don't do a sushi. Or do a sushi, never do a burrito. I have a thick end here and a thick end there. The points. That's a point and that's a point in the thick ends. Put it on. Pull it. I took a bunch of wool, threw them in Kool-Aid jars, and let the resist and to exhaust until the water was clear white. And you don't want to use Kool-Aid with sugar. So you blend it up and see how rich those are in color. That's Kool-Aid. I even have a pair of Kool-Aid socks from all my samples. So this is kind of ratty and kind of felted. So I'm just gonna kind of pull it out a little bit.
I like that color a lot.
Isn't that pretty? I used to do this when I taught art in school. I would line up all the jars, because I did spinning and weaving in my class too. And the kids just couldn't believe when the water would just go crystal clear and how rich. And there are charts, Kool-Aid charts. So again, I'm going to load my carder, find the tip. Now I'm going to add some green. I'm going to show you how this differs from Pet the Kitty. Just loosen that up, tease it. This is teasing. So now I've loaded the center of my carder. I blended it, so it was red, green, red. Now I'm going to go back with it. Red, green, red. If you were doing the other method, which everybody does, this will blend and become homogeneous. But the butterfly will enable you to keep your stripes in. And again, you just I'm sorry if I'm starting or stuff. My mouth is so dry, it's like it's gluing the tongue to my mouth. So now I have a Rolex that has red, green, red. The more you blend card to card, side to side, the more you're mixing and blending your colors in. So now I have red, green, red. So when I would spin it, I'm going to get different tones of color. So blending, excuse me, not blending, but straightening out your fibers, you can maintain your stripes. Blending, we think of is you have wool and alpaca and you blend it back and forth because you want that fiber to mix up. So you're going to blend it a couple times. So now I have this nice little Rolex and I just start spinning right off that. Very easy, or start weaving with it and put it in this way for rugs. Oh, what do we do when you're in the raw? Here's right off the sheet, okay? There's quite a bit of lanolin. These are the tips. This is the cut end. If you blend everything, meaning the tips, every time you blend and you work it in, the tips are in one direction and the cut in the other, that's sliver. And you have to be careful when you buy anything and it calls it sliver or top. It's not blended correctly, and there's a lot of controversy on that. Okay, so I like to, if it's this raw, I like to just take the tips and snap them. Because if there's any breakage, take the tip and the cut and snap. And this is merino, eating merino. We have a farmer, this is local. So I snap, nothing's breaking. Blocks will break, wool will break if whatever the sheep eat. And if they have a poor meal for a while, it's going to affect the hair. If the sheep is suddenly scared or traumatized, it will affect the wool. The ends can get bleached, and some people put coats on their sheep and they break. But whenever you're selecting a raw fleece, all you have to do is take the lock, cut ends, tip end, and snap. You want to snap it, make sure it doesn't break in here. Now, if you're buying a fleece and you just put your hand in a little bit, you need to have them open the fleece and check it in spots. So now we have a dirty fleece wool. I'm going to load it the same way. I like to load everything. There's a second right there. Second cut. I always load from the tips. I hold the tips. And what I'm going to do, see it? See how that just fluffed out? Then I turn it around to the tips. Just kind of, I'm doing sort of a flick method, but instead of using my carder on the lock, I do the reverse. See how that flicked it out? And I'm getting trash out. So you remember how dirty that was? There's dirt and trash. See how clean it is? Okay. Then I take my other carder and load it with a clean lock. Then I take another, hold the tips. In the cut end, if there's any second cuts, that's when they're shearing, they shear the sheep, they go, near, and they back, and they stop. Every time they stop, and if they bring it just 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna get a little cut piece. So I'm just holding it on my leg, holding the tip, and I'm just doing this, fluffing it out. Now I hold the cut edge, do the tips. Nice clean piece. And someone said, oh, you're getting the lanolin and stuff in your carts. That's fine. Because the lanolin will protect your nails or tines. This is the dirty one. See what was flicked off? All I have to do is pick the end, clean brush, trash I'm not going to use. Now, what's nice about this method is I start with the tips. I'm connected, 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 right there. I no longer have any hair. Or, excuse me, flick, tap, pull. What you don't want to do, I'm still connected right about here. If you don't do the blonde thing, I'm still what? Let's see if I can show you. There.
Yeah.
See, you don't want to roll back on it. And that's what people do. This method is so fast. Oh. Here's the kicker, what makes it different butterfly than Pet the Kitty. As I do this and I pull, the trash, a lot of the VM, they call it, or trash, will drop on the floor of my lap, flip. Because I'm pulling it away, I'm giving trash somewhere to go. Pet the Kitty, it doesn't, it stays in your carter. So as I'm going up, it's ready. And why do we like to weave or knit in the wool, in the raw? The Viking sails are done with the lanolin. One of the first ships they did for recreation to cross didn't have lanolin. The moisture soaked into the wool and the air, and they just about sank the boat. They had enough time to get back to shore. Lanolin will resist water. The fishermen's sweaters, lanolin. They leave it in the raw, clean it. Can you see right, look in here for a twisting motion. See how nice and clean that is? And it's ready to go. And that really is coming out of this bag right here. So you could actually do something in the raw. Now, if I was to put a little twist on this, you could get a stick, and that's another process. A stick and put a twist, light twist. You can actually knit with this too. And this is the only way I'm going to achieve thick roving, or excuse me, thick thread for knot binding, because I spin thin. Once you go thin, it's hard to get fat. So it will have just a slight twist to it, and then it's ready to go as a thicker for knot binding. I did a retreat for 30 years, and everybody did Pet the Kitty. And I asked all the instructors at the retreat what was their preference in cards. And they always said this, and I said, why? Why? And they couldn't really give me a reason. It's because that's the way they learn. I really stress ergonomics when I teach anything, because this is really hard on your wrist if it's not done right. I'm going to show you Pet the Kitty on curved carters, which most people have. They will load their carters up, same way, but they didn't, unless someone told them about the inch. And they like to embed fibers deep in the cards. You don't need to do that. Pat the Kitty The reason why it was given that name, and an instructor used that name all the time, is that when you pet a cat with a brush, you're doing this, okay? They don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear the teeth. You're pulling against the teeth. If you pet a kitty like that, you're gonna get bit. So even with this method, you're gonna do it, keep it on top. And then I'm going to take this carder, whatever's left, load it. Change hands, clean. And you notice I'm kind of struggling with it. I still have fiber on both because now I'm going to load it. They always have fiber in two. Unload. Now, before I take it off this one, maybe you'll be able to see it. Can you see how it's wrapped around the little tines here? When you spin, these little bumps here will do slopes. So we loaded and load here. Now that's sitting on top. Sort of on top. I'm going to roll away from the nail. The tines are pointing this way. So I'm going to grab it, roll it off, and make sure you don't roll it off like a burrito. That you're rolling it off like sushi. You should be able to take your Rolex, hold it up to the light, and not see dark spots. If you see a dark spot, that means the fiber has congregated in one spot. Now, the problem with Pet the Kitty is that I'm rolling like this. And I'm just straightening the fibers. So the trash, the leaves, the VM, we call it vegetable matter, gets trapped in the tines and in your work. So you're just sitting here and then you load and then you're doing this and keep them on your carders. And you have to flick more. That's very hard on your wrist. Your wrists will wear out. And that's where I get the complaints. My wrists hurt so much. They shouldn't. And it's hard for me not to do it the old way. I always try to do Pet the Kitty, or I mean butterfly. So Pet the Kitty, that's all you should hear. The nails do not go in and embed. Okay, can you do butterfly with curves? Yes, it's just a little bit more work on this. I'll load it using the butterfly. I want to find a tip. Another good thing with butterfly, a lot of people will do 72s for coarser thread, 90s for medium,